Greetings, viewers. Some of you may remember way back in December when I built my new computer, I had a power supply that went bad. It's not the one that you see in the center of your screen, it's actually the one that's way over there. We'll get to that here in just a minute. The one that's in the center of your screen is an Enermax, just random ATX power supply out of my collection that I'm going to use as a reference point just to sort of show you what a perfectly healthy power supply should be doing. I'll get this meter over here so I can actually access it. And maybe so you can actually see what it's reading. Now, if you've ever wondered how to build your own benchtop power supply out of one of these, this is how you do it. The old baby AT and the AT standard before it, how that worked is there was a wire coming out of the power supply going to a hard power switch, and that directly switched the line voltage. So when you turn it on, the power supply comes on. It's very easy to make a benchtop power supply out of those. But that was also fairly dangerous because it took 120 volts and routed it straight to the front of the case. Usually what happened when that went wrong was a big boom. How you do it with the ATX standard is a little bit different because for safety reasons they took that switch out and now the power control is done by the motherboard. What happens when you push the power switch on your computer, on the main power connector here, and you can see I've jumped it, there's this little green wire right here. This is on a 24 pin, that would be pin 16. I believe on a 20 pin like this, that would be pin 14, I think. Something like that. What it does is it shorts that green wire to one of the ground planes. That could be really any ground plane. I've just got the most convenient one here. So I've simulated that. As long as that PS on pin, the green wire, is shorted to ground, the power supply will supply power. As we'll see here in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and turn the power supply on. It might take a second, but you can see the fans are spinning. Now I'm going to make some measurements here, just to show you that this is in fact working. So I'll grab one of the Molex power connectors here, and we'll do the incredibly safe thing of just jamming pins in here and expecting that it'll work. Might be a little twiddly. You can see we get about 12 volts there. We can go over to the 5 volt, which is the red wire. You can see we get about the same thing. It's a little high, but this power supply isn't loaded down at all, so that kind of makes sense. Now, there are a couple other checks that we can make. If we go over back to this thing, and we find another ground plane. Any of these black wires are ground planes, so we'll just find a convenient one here. And I'll try and do this. We'll go to one of the red wires, one of the orange wires, and that's a 3.3, which is again a little high. Any of the orange wires are 3.3. There's a blue wire here. You might be able to see it. This blue thing buried deep in there, and that is a minus 12 volt, which as I remember it is used only by the PCI standard. If we go and measure that, ooh, that's really low. Well, again, it's lightly loaded, and imagine that's probably most of the reason why it's so low. There's a white wire here as well, which isn't on most newer power supplies. They omit this. This is your minus 5 volts, which I believe was only used for ISA, and it's not strictly needed for ATX certification. Now, I'm going to try and get this. This might be a little twiddly. There we go. So there's our minus 5. Let me measure that minus 12 again. Try and do it this way. Might be a little easier. Oh, I got it backwards. Yeah. So it is probably a little low on the minus 12, but nothing that's really going to hurt anything. Again, if it were less lightly loaded, if it actually had a motherboard and a system on it, it'd probably work a little bit better. But as soon as I take this little jumper thing out here, the power supply turns off. So let me get my Antec power supply over here and we'll give it that test. Oh, but before I do, one other thing you might be wanting to know. Other than the 5 volt and the 12 volt on this thing, there's another wire here, this purple wire. Let's see if I can actually show that to you. The purple wire here right beside the 12 volt yellow wire, that is your 5 volt standby. That's another thing that you might want to measure if you're trying to figure out if a power supply is actually working. Actually, before I go, I might actually measure that just to see. That should be an always-on connection. So as long as it's working, we should have our 5-volt standby. So let me see if I can actually do this. I'm enough of a twiddle fingers to do it. You can actually see what I'm doing here. Oh, those aren't even the right leads. So we'll find a ground plane. There's one. Yes, we get 5 volts on the standby, even though the power supply, as you can very clearly see, is off. So, working as intended. Okay, I got my little Antec friend over here. And I've already gone ahead and hooked up my jumper wire, hopefully correctly. Well, it's a little loose. But I'm hopeful that it will work. If I bring it on here, now is when it'll show that I'm a liar. But no, it's not coming on at all. No life out of it whatsoever, not even when I adjust this pin. So there's obviously not anything going on there. And I'm going to check the 5-volt standby here, which again is that little purple wire. This one does not have, you'll notice there's no white wire on this one. It's right beside the plus 12. It does have the minus 12, which, like I said, I believe it's actually part of the standard still. It's only used by PCI. It's not used by PCI Express, so it's not really strictly necessary anymore. So I'll see if we're even getting any 5-volt standby out of this power supply. No, there's no 5-volt standby. Huh. Nothing. Do we get anything at all? No, we don't even get anything at all. So something obviously has happened to this power supply. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and pop the cover, since I've now verified that there is a wide range of issues. Now, you want to be very careful about doing this, because a power supply that isn't working correctly could have all kinds of hazards in it. Voltages that aren't there, that shouldn't be there usually, capacitors that are partially charged, all kinds of things. And in here, at least theoretically, is quite a fair bit of line voltage. So, definitely unplug it, as I've done here, and be very, very careful if you're going to do this. In fact, don't even do this. Don't try this at home. Don't try it at work. Don't try it at a friend's house. Don't even try it at your enemy's house. Unless you have your enemy do it, of course. So I'm going to break this seal because I am a badass. And I can just about guarantee you this thing is not under warranty anymore. I think there's probably a screw underneath it. Right about there. In fact, I'm going to just do that off camera because this is probably going to take a little bit of doing and some swear words. Okay, I pop the cover and I see exactly what I was expecting to see. Go and have a look here. This capacitor does not look quite correct. Look at that. That is domed. Who makes that capacitor? Let's go ahead and see if we can have a look. Oops, didn't mean to do that. It's very hard to see. Now, you want to be careful not to touch any of this stuff like I'm doing. RLX. Yeah, that's crap. Who makes these ones? These are OSTs. They're no better. The big cap on the back is a Rubicon. That's practically guaranteed to be good. Those don't usually go bad. I know Rubicon did have a defective series. They had the MCZ, but I highly doubt that's an MCZ. So, in fact, it should say on it what it is. USC. Oh no, that's the composition. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So, I could probably take this out and recap it, and maybe I will. Because I'd imagine that's probably all the problem is. Could be this fuse down here. There's a little fuse. Give me a screwdriver. There's a fuse right here. That could have blown. Other things to check out for are these here, these transformers. One of those could be open. The power stuff could be open. But I think I'm going to probably, if I ever want to really do much with this, I'd try replacing this first. This dud capacitor. See if it comes back to life. And then after that, I don't really know. So maybe in a future video, when I get back to work here, because I'm recording this video in December, and it's pretty much the end of December, so I'm done work for the year. But when I get back in, I may try my hand at replacing this capacitor, see if it brings the power supply back to life. And then after that, probably replace all the other junk capacitors in this thing. But at least for now, this thing is a very heavy paperweight. And that's it for this video. I'm sorry it wasn't really all that entertaining. Dud capacitor. I was hoping actually to find maybe some burned components. But I don't see anything on the top of this case other than a lot of dirt. That suggests to me that something burned. So, I don't think anything burned. That's it. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666 signing off, and I hope to see you next time. Till then. Quick little postscript. This capacitor right here is an OST capacitor. I can just barely make it out right here on the top. So, junk.